everybody. We are live. Welcome back. And as promised, we have another company doing a practice management software demo, but this company is so much more than just a practice management software. I want to welcome Oliver, who is the founder of Kitrin as well as SMEMetrics, and I didn't know that they were one and the same company. So I think a lot of people probably didn't know that. So I think it's great that we are going to hear all about what they offer. So Kitrin offers both managed and self-service practice management and billing solutions, and they have offers that suit different size practices with different budgets. But I'm going to let Oliver explain to you all about that. So let me just bring him on. Welcome, Oliver. So nice to have you.
Thanks, Tasneem. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. And also just to talk about the products. I mean, so SMEMetrics and Kitrin as a company, I mean, obviously very separate, but hopefully what I show today to your audience and to yourself, that it's definitely been an evolution. As I think with every practitioner, I mean, I think it never is static. And I think that's the one thing that we can kind of agree with, especially after this year. I mean, like, no one can plan anything, but over the years, yeah, we've evolved, we've evolved the offering, we've evolved the messaging, and I'm hoping to convey that in a really good way today. And before I start, I mean, we only started speaking recently, and I do want to say, I mean, I've seen your name pop up, quite a few times, and I really admire what you're doing. So, although we're going through this, the one thing I do want to say, it's almost like what you bring to your audience and what you bring, it seems, to the world at the moment is an unbiased approach to private practice management and how you could grow that. And I think I told you on the phone call, it was amazing because lots of the things, I mean, I've never seen some of the other software packages. So for us as well, like looking at it is amazing. But this, this time that obviously we're spending together is our biased view on the world in terms of how we see private practice management and how we, help our current clients and hope to help other clients. So I call the presentation Private Practice and Baking, Who Knew? So we're business management specialists that are passionate about assisting healthcare practitioners in private practice. So why me? And I said, definitely not me. So Ingrid started it, and that's my wife. This was on a recent holiday with our two children, obviously much more older now. And the reason I say this is Ingrid's the one that you would probably relate to. I mean, I'm definitely not that one, as the next slide will show you. But she's a clinical psychologist with a successful private practice now for West Johannesburg. She's been in private practice for over 15 years, but she hasn't always been happy with the success part of her private practice. And, I didn't realize this initially because, you just go through the motions of being the best therapist you can. And, especially after you come out of community service, and get into private practice, you're kind of struggling with lots of the things. But after a few years, I kind of got it. And, I said there, she loves what she does, as I'm sure that everyone else, that's listening to this or that's on your Facebook group or your YouTube channel, I mean, they all love that part of it. So on my side, I mean, I come from an IT and business background, definitely not a healthcare practitioner, and I've been in that industry for over 22 years. But as I kind of rose through that corporate ranks, I found I was losing time for myself, the family, and it was just the evolution of, how a career happens. But I also found that after a while, I was less focused on the actual doing of the work and more on the managing of people and things like that. So I wasn't quite enjoying that stuff. And as always does happen, there's always a life-changing moment. And for me, that was when our daughter Kiara was born. I started feeling a lot more resentful about the stuff that I was doing. And I suppose just getting older as well. So, I just couldn't do like 14-hour days or taking support calls at 2:00 in the morning. It was cool badges you had, when you were first starting out in your career. But, as you're getting older, it was probably just the wrong thing. And I think that last part is quite important. It was like also working with the wrong clients. And that's quite important for us, which I'll show you now. So while I'm having my corporate meltdown, Ingrid's having her own meltdown in her practice. And it was just, it was just too much to do. And I'm sure, everyone that's in private practice can probably relate to this. I found very few exceptions to this rule. And it started being just simple things, like invoicing, and one would think, invoicing is so easy, but it's not. And Ingrid would send out her invoices probably 2 to 3 months after the invoice, after seeing the patient. For obvious reasons, she never got paid, before 2 to 3 months. And yeah, just no regular client referrals, not understanding how to send out invoices. So she would always, initially anyway, send out like the Microsoft Word documents, which is, like anyone that's doing that now should stop. But just converting it to PDF and sending that out. So yeah, that's kind of where we started. If Ingrid was on the call, she'll kind of agree to this, and maybe it's a man thing, but we always like try to come and rescue stuff. So I started trying to see, okay, how do I rescue this whole thing? And so we, so for those that don't know, like Brene Brown, I've read quite a few of their books.
Yep.
But,
she's amazing.
Yeah, she is. Hey, yeah, I think I've been through 2 of her books, and it's like really cool stuff. But she talks about having the desire to save things, and so this presentation, these products, and even the part that I'm on now is kind of that culmination of that inspiration with Ingrid's practice. So before I go into the meat of it, I do want to say, and hopefully everyone relates to this as well, which is really cool, is that I think being in private practice or having your own business, you could be a lot more intentional about how you want to spend your time, what you want to do, how much money you want to make. And I found that was quite liberating coming from a corporate career and doing this, doing the stuff for ourselves and having our own company and designing the products. But we kind of started figuring out how we could have the freedom to choose how we wanted to work and who we wanted to work with. And we summarized that with values that we kind of aspire to. And the reason I want to start off with that is I always tell our team and, like even potential clients working with us is that not everyone drives BMWs or Mercedes or, Toyotas. I think everyone has their own preference. And although this is our spin on the world and this is the team that we are, it's probably not going to be the fit for everyone. But the people that it is the fit for, I mean, that's cool because then we were on the same journey and we aligned in some way. But for us, integrity, appreciation, having an abundance mentality, being, knowing that we don't have all the answers, but we're continuously improving, always having a positive, attitude, always working to the best of our ability as quickly as we can. And then also to have the bravery of the conversations, because again, not everything goes, the way you planned it. But at that point, to have the bravery to speak to the client and be honest and say, actually, this didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but this is what we've done. So, again, I want to bring across the idea in a way, because, if I just start pushing out products, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So I wanted to put in an idea, and use an analogy so that it kind of explains how we approach, what we're doing with Kitrin, with our products. So I used this presentation actually last year, for a few of the conferences we did. But I said, imagine needing to prepare an awesome birthday cake for one of your loved ones. How would you do this? It's my mother-in-law's birthday coming up. And, if we were in the same situation, how would we approach that? And so, I just put this out there so you can kind of be familiar with the products. But, you have Kitrin as the main brand, and then you have all of these other products, behind it. Which we'll go into. So the first technique is just to buy the cake. I mean, that cake looks a lot better than what you would get at Woolies. But, normally just going to Woolies, picking the best one, according to your preference would actually work, just dressing it up a little bit differently. And so that's technique number one. And in our view of the world, what that means is just get the practice management service. And I know, Tasneem, I mean, you do, I haven't watched all of the videos in detail, but I know you've had like medical bureaus that come, that have come on. And that would be an example of you, knowing that you don't have all of the skills for every single function in your private practice and just outsourcing that part of it. Knowing that you hate doing invoicing, or you hate following up with someone and saying, actually, you owe me 4,000 rands, when are you going to pay me? Things like that, you can just outsource it. So in our world, that's a all-inclusive practice management service, which means it's kind of done for you. And in terms of why it makes sense, firstly, it saves you time in private practice management functions. The second one is it reduces expenses. And if you don't think it reduces expenses, there's a way that you can figure this out, in terms of your own time, and see, if it takes you more than 10 hours on all of those functions, it's probably going to save you money every single month to have someone do it for you. And then in our world, and I know this differs slightly from, traditional medical bureaus, is that we offer a full and cross-function team at a fixed and cost-effective monthly fee. So in our experience, and again, I don't want to, state this because I don't have the backing, but from what we've heard, there's normally a percentage, or there's normally, a fixed fee per invoice. We don't do that. We just put a fixed fee and we say that's what we kind of give you.
So it's kind of like having a pay-as-you-go SIM card versus a fixed contract that gives you set minutes and...
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That is exactly the analogy, yeah. So we called it ISOForge, and again, people kind of get confused with all of the names, and in our head, we, it kind of makes sense, and then we kind of put it out to market, and everyone says, what is ISOForge, and what is SMEMetrics, and what is Kitrin? And so if you look at our branding as well, you'll see, from a Kitrin point of view, every time you see, that logo, it's normally a Kitrin brand.
Okay.
So on the basic product, and again, I don't want to go into too much of the detail because obviously, we just confused the messaging. But on the basic product, we just do your invoicing, we answer your phone, we do your payment allocation, we follow up with medical aids, we submit to medical aid, we do your financial management accounts, we check up on the unpaids, and we process that as per debt collection processes. We do your tax management, and we do a marketing process as we've kind of defined it. And then in terms of a sneak peek of how this would look, we almost like, if you look here, it's almost like a team behind it. And then we have a mechanism where we track what needs to be done for every single one of those business functions, as well as what and what it gives you is as a client, or as a healthcare practitioner in private practice, is almost like a good link to the entire team in terms of what needs to be done. There's a place where we upload documents for you based on each one of the processes. There's messages. You can actually send anyone in the team a direct message. So it's almost like, like a WhatsApp message to me, which is quite good because, again, it's, losing control of those functions is quite, heart-wrenching. So if you have close contact with the team, actually, have they done what they're supposed to do? And if they haven't, can I escalate it without phoning them or doing anything like that? Because traditionally that's like 7:00 at night. So, you don't want to.
Yeah, when most therapists are doing their admin after hours.
Yeah, I joked with a client recently, and so her thing is she does it on a Sunday at like from 8:30 onwards, and I was online, and she sent me a message, and she's like, "You shouldn't be working at this stage." And my response was, "Well, when you figure that out, tell me, because then you would have cracked it." But yeah, she just laughed. It's.
So this is that was a snapshot of the actual dashboard that the clients see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. So obviously they have their own, and we'll customize it to that. But the processes are pretty much as per that. And what we find, and Tasneem, I would love to like litmus test this with you. But those are the basic functions of a business, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
There might be a little bit of tweaks, but that's the high level business processes that you need to get done.
I think I'm also quite I was quite impressed with the telephone management, because usually like the products, it's like you understand the getting paid and invoicing, But the telephone management, can you just go a little bit into that? How does that work? So is it like a reception service?
Yes, except with this reception service, we actually understand your practice. So now, if you look at traditional, outsourced practices, or not practices, but virtual workspaces. So, things like Regis or CubeSpace, or, what they would do is they would say, yes, we give you a receptionist, but all that they do is they take a message, because they don't really understand your business. If the client says, comes in, so like we got the one client who's a clin psych, and she doesn't see children under 15. So, that's part of. So when they phone in, we give each one of the ISO-Forge clients a dedicated phone number. So that is their number. And they would say, it's an IVR system. So it'll say, welcome to the practice of Tasneem Abrams. Please press 1 to make an appointment. Press 2 for an invoice or billing query, or press 3 to speak to a consultant. And so if they press 1, then they come through, and the team automatically knows that this is actually an invoice query. So when they pick up the phone, they say, hi, how would you like me to help you with your, booking an appointment? And it kind of goes like that. If the team is not available or it's outside working hours, we get a voicemail, and that voicemail kind of comes into that system. So we just, listen to the voicemail, and then we post it as a message for the client to review.
So besides that, you now, getting somebody to manage your invoicing, you're also then saving money on employing a full-time receptionist, which means basic conditions of employment, sick leave, pay as you earn, all of that then comes due. Whereas now you're just like outsourcing just that function, so that's that's quite impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. So when we talk about value proposition, it's like, and I don't know if you covered this so far, but it's almost like having different hats in a business. And as soon as the practitioner hires that first person, I don't care what they do, even if they're doing your filing, you have to manage that person. People don't work unless, you manage them. And I know very few healthcare practitioners that have their degree plus a BCom or an MBA. And, that's where you learn how to do this. And even if you knew how to do it, do you really want to do that? Whereas with us, if something hasn't been done, you basically pick up the phone and you say, Oliver, why hasn't this been done? It's like, there's no issues around that stuff. It's just, it's just business. It's how it is. Whereas you could probably not do that with an employee.
I'm a terrible boss because I don't like conflict. So if you're not doing your job, I'll probably just leave you to not do your job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were actually speaking to a client, and she said kind of the same thing. She's like, I hired this person, but I can't really get rid of her. I just don't know how. So I love your service, but I just don't know how to do this. And so you kind of smile and move on. But and I definitely understand that. So coming back to the story, the technique number 2 is to get the ingredients and the tools. Now, what that means, and on this slide here, I'll go into the SMEMetrics one, is I do want to show that, although we've done amazing work, from a practice management software point of view, it's not just the software. So we've got clients that are really happy, but what they miss is all of the other aspects of this. And so that's why we came up with the ISO Evolve product. And if I had to name some of those things, it would be things like electronic client intake forms, dedicated telephone number. So if you look at what we're offering from a service point of view, and if you had to do this yourself, how would you do that? Appointment scheduling, we spoke about that. Unpaid management, I mean, this is a major thing. And I don't know what the stats are for other practitioners, but we find when a client starts working with us, their unpaid is about 20%. We can normally get that to under 5%, but that's actively working on it. And what that tells me in the market, and I could be wrong as well, is that for every healthcare practitioner in private practice, they're probably losing a fifth or 20% of their revenue because they don't do unpaid management.
Hmm.
And financial management, again, this is a really, it's a business thing, but how is your practice doing? Do you have a monthly management report? When I ask that question, most clients actually give me that look where it says, "What are you, what are you talking about?" And yeah, tax management is another big thing. Irrespective of how you feel about the government or anything, just having tax compliance is an important
Hmm.
aspect. And then website, and I think you kind of preaching on the same level that we have been, is that you do need that online presence. We've moved past that stage where we have to ask, do you have a website or not? I think if you don't have a website, you're definitely lagging behind where the market currently is. When I told my wife this 10 years ago, she gave me that look as well, saying, no, we can't have a website, all of those things. But now I find it, there's very few exceptions where people don't have that.
Yeah, I think also because I mean I do think you bootstrap, you go with what's the priority first, where you're spending your money, and I do feel like if you have a limited resource, rather spend it on where you're going to get paid, such as somebody who's going to help you, outsourcing, managing unpaids, rather than a website. But if you can, but do save up for a website. Because I think that what a lot of people don't realize, like they think you can market yourself using just a Facebook page. And that's what most therapists are doing, because Facebook is easy and most in our generation are Facebookers, right? The
Mm-hmm.
problem is that you don't have ownership over Facebook. And this happened recently where there was something happened globally to do with Facebook servers, and everybody's Facebook was down, the ads weren't running, and it caused like it was both Facebook and Instagram, because Instagram is owned by Facebook. And the
Mm-hmm.
influencers were up in arms because they lost like thousands and thousands of dollars globally, because their whole business is run on that platform. And yes, it was just an isolated short incident, but it's a wake up call to show you that something like that, if you are riding your entire business on a platform that you have no control over, can really you're putting all your eggs in one basket. And also, I think the problem is that most people have a website made and then the website sits there redundant. If you're not using your website and thinking of your website as another employee in your business, then it's gonna just, and I'm a much better boss to a website than a person because I can tell my website exactly what it needs to do. But you need to treat your website like that, like a person that has a job to do. And if you put your website to work, you will find that it will be very you will find that the return on investment is there. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's, yeah, I like how you said that. That's actually, I've never heard that before. But like the other thing, if I just had to add on to, I agree with everything that you said, is that, when you put your website, your actual website up, and hopefully it's done on WordPress, you're putting content out that's search engine friendly. And so if people are searching for that, like you putting out content on YouTube, when people are searching for any of those terms that you're talking about, if you're putting just your content on Facebook, people would never find that, obviously, unless they're searching in Facebook. But if they're searching, as most people do, on Google, they will never find that content. It's just not how the search engines work. Um, so yeah, that's a really important point to do that. And what you were saying earlier about, almost like picking a position, you can only do that if you do have your own position place where you're putting that out, your own thoughts, the people that you want to attract, what is it that you stand for, how do you feel about, the areas that, the development areas that you work with, things like that. And so we highly recommend it. I mean, for us, we do the full design with hosting. If you just picked website, was like $3.95 a month, which I think is not outside the reach of anyone, in private practice to be able to do. Okay, so this is a cool part of it, and I'm always very excited when I show this because SMEmetrics has always been our baby, and it's when I started with it was with the intention of getting Ingrid not to do her invoicing herself, and I'll show you. I mean, like the strides that we made in the last 6 or 7 years. Again, I do want to say, when we started this. Ingrid bought into a psychology practice, and I think there were about 8 psychologists there, and they were using MediMass at that time. And obviously, I mean, I don't know MediMass, maybe it's changed a lot. But herself and her 2 receptionists went for training for a few days, and they came back, and still to do an invoice was really difficult to do. And I just thought when we started this, it's like it can't be that difficult, it can't be. And so when we modeled SME, it was based on the one thing that every single practitioner without fail I know has, which is a diary. And, now like there's quite a few other software that kind of like models that view. But when we started, I didn't find anyone that did that. So now, okay, so here's SMEmetrics. I'm going to log out just so that you know that it's a live demo. It's always a good thing when you see that. The one thing you do, especially with the bigger practices, you can see multiple, you can have access to multiple practices. So, and again, from a cost point of view, I haven't put anything in the presentation, but if you're a 3-practice person, like a 3-practitioner practice, that's about 250 rands per month per practitioner, which is, for all intents and purposes, that's not a lot. So I'm a Star Wars fan, so I've put in Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Vader. So essentially, if they came for an appointment, this is how your calendar will look. And let's assume, right? I know you're not supposed to do future-based billing, but let's assume that we're going to do that, right? And let's assume that we needed to do a new appointment for a new client. So let's call that R2D2. I don't know what the surname is, but let's say robot. Right. I'm going to put in the email address. I'm going to put the mobile number there, and I'm going to click save. As soon as you do that, that's a contact now in SME. And then the only other thing that we require, which is actually very important, is the Icd-10 code. So I'll put them all having
So I see the
palsy.
ICD, you can actually look up the ICD-10 codes in the system?
Yes, 100%. So if you're not sure, this says full DSM-5, so you can look that up. Or if you knew what it was, you can definitely enter it. And then the other thing we get asked a lot is, can you have multiple? Especially with physios and OTs, you do need to have sometimes multiple. We linked up to all of the medical aids in South Africa. So there's 90 plus, but there's probably only about 20 administrators or less than that. So you can do that. We were also one of the first software where you could submit to medical aid using email mechanism, because I think probably 6 years ago, not all of the medical aids accepted that. Discovery was a pioneer in terms of doing that. So claims at discovery.co.za. But traditionally in the market, software like HealthBridge and MediMass, they definitely had a niche because they could submit via EDI. And so when we went to market, we offered email because there was no cost to it. But we do now allow you to submit via EDI as well. And, so it's just a switch. It's like when you pay with your credit card, so there's a fee for that. So you can do that. And I'm going to say save. And then what you can also do, you can put an invoice template. So an invoice template is again, this was when we first started doing this, there didn't seem to be many software that was doing that. It's almost like the type of therapy this person is coming for. For psychologists, this is quite easy, especially if you're a psychodynamic therapist, you're probably only going to see the person 50 minutes, and that's going to be your BHF code. For where we actually put this in was with the physios and the OTs, because their billing is so much more complicated.
Yeah, it
And
is.
yeah, so now rather than putting every single line item, we just said, okay, cool, let's just create one that says 30-minute consult. And then you define what the BHF codes and the unit price is for each one of those codes.
Okay.
So let's assume that it's that. And then if we go to the calendar, go back to what I said in the first, and let's put R2D2 to come through. All right, you'll see the system automatically picked the invoice template. You can put repeats, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to put that in. So what automatically happens, and this is the part that I said, from how we manage the calendar, was quite unique when we first came out with it. And you can see at the bottom here what that exactly means. So that means that this appointment has not been invoiced as yet. It's a blue appointment.
Okay.
But you can configure the software that as soon as I put that appointment in, an SMS and an email gets sent to the client informing them of their appointment, and that appointment gets synced to their phone in terms of their calendar. So the obvious benefit of that is the missed appointments gets reduced because you're reminding people of their appointments, and it's in their calendar. So where the really and then I just want to do this for the demo, is that now all of these gray appointments are all repeat appointments because Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader are coming, every single month, and some of them every single day. So I'm going to convert all of the repeat appointments, right, to. Yeah.
So are you also able to set, because when it comes to setting rates, some people charge medical aid rates per the patient's medical aid. Some people charge just discovery rates, and some people charge a private rate. So do you set that on a per patient basis, or do you set that globally, or how does that work?
You can set it on that invoice template, so you can define it for each one. I'm going to do this because I think because of the future-based billing, it's not allowing it. So I want to go back to that scenario here, where in December, once we click the convert repeats, all of your appointments are now at, the blue. So, and the whole point about the demo is I want to show you that if you did that on a regular basis, all you have to do is click one button and all of the invoices are generated for you. So if I did invoice all, I set my invoice date to the end of the month. And I said invoice all. You can also then auto approve, auto mail the invoices. Which I'm not going to do. It gets submitted, and within a few seconds, you see that it's all changed to the, to the yellow. And if I look
you
at
could essentially set up your appointments in your calendar, and then see everybody, and then at the end of the month, you just invoice everyone for the appointments.
Yes,
okay.
100%. And
or if you are invoicing people like daily, like when they come for the appointment, you could also just go into that appointment and convert a single appointment or invoice a single appointment.
100%. Yeah. So just to show you on that invoice, you see every single, date there. And because this was, obviously different, I think this was consultation only. So you'll see, it was consultation plus assessment. You'll see there's two different BHF codes. And the two different amounts for every single date there. And then it says easy as just submitting this invoice. Because this is a medical aid client, you'll see that you can send it to the patient, the contact, or to the medical aid. And, recently, especially this year, you had to submit additional motivation. You can attach a file there that you needed to put in and just mail. And that's it. That's the invoicing done like in less than 2 minutes, if you followed that process. So I mean, like there's tons more features under the hood, but we don't have to go through that. I mean, all that I want to say is that from an appointment setting, from a reminding clients of their appointments, from an invoicing, from a payment allocation, SMEMetrics does a really good job at just doing that. And so if you wanted that solution, that works perfectly fine.
So that is kind of having, as opposed to the first one you spoke about, where you guys do everything. So you would actually do the invoicing and stuff. Whereas
100%.
this is, you are using the software to kind of invoice yourself and follow up yourself and things like that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's what we mean by the tools. So like you still almost like we used to use the term, you're still the puppet master behind. But what's good about SMEmetrics is like you can configure it so that it comes from an email that we assign to you. So what clients, it started becoming a hidden benefit feature because clients would love the fact that it didn't come from Tasneem Abrams. It came from SMEmetrics. So in the patient's mind, it was outsourced, whereas you actually did the invoicing or do the invoicing.
Yeah. Which is also like, I recommend anyway that if you are emailing your clients, you should have a separate email for your account. So with Digital Engage, for example, I have hello at, I have tasneem.abrams at, and then I have accounts at. And all my accounts and billing inquiries and all that come from accounts. So especially if you're somebody who is a bit shy about following up or asking for money, or you can kind of hide behind this alter ego where you can be your accounts person. I actually have my accounts person has a name. It's my bookkeeper. She knows. I told my accountant, listen, I'm using your name, Tracy, because I'm going to be Tracy when I email my client. She's like, that's totally fine. So yeah, my alter ego is Tracy when I'm emailing from accounts.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a good strategy, actually. So where we kind of evolved to, and that's the journey part, that the little boy in the background with the parachute, is we don't feel just the practice management software is good enough still. So we want to take that even further, and the IC Evolve software is that. So think of it like SMEmetrics plus plus plus, and things like where the gaps are is the client intake forms, the proactive tax management, your financial processing, your unpaid management, the telephone number. And again, with exactly what you just said now, Tasneem, imagine a software or you being able to do this yourself. And I think people could do this. I mean, you can get a dedicated number. You can set up an IVR. You can set up voicemail. But how would you do that? And that's kind of the space that we're now in. And yeah, so we constantly evolving how we think about it. And in website design, hosting, and guidance, I mean, this because you're doing it really well, is how do you generate content that's correct, and kind of, it makes sense from a referral point of view. So that's the part we're putting in. So we're currently in public beta. That means we've got some of our SMEmetrics clients on it, and we've got some of our ISOForge clients on it, and we use it ourselves. That's how we can do ISOForge. But yeah, we are accepting pre-orders for early 2021. So if anyone's interested in that. And then again, talking about the model and where we are is what we've always said from a practice management methodologies. One is you need to be a healthcare practitioner in private practice, or at least aspire to be one. You want to be in a space where you can do a private practice doing at least 70K per month. And again, there's ways that you can, aspire to do that or plan to do that. After you do that, what we find is the next evolution of the model is to have a non-time-based practice. And that, there's multiple ways you can do this. There's books, there's courses, there's membership sites, and stuff like that. And the one that we took was a online-based course platform. So we allow practitioners then to be able to come up with their own courses, to charge for that. And I always get the feedback that actually I don't have anything to sell. I don't know what that is. And I always call that, because that's actually nonsense, because almost every practitioner is like amazing. And the way I explain this is, imagine if I, as a parent, was coming to see you, just say as a speech therapist or as an OT, and I said, at the moment, Tristan is struggling with X, Y, Z. Are you the right fit for that? And normally practitioners would go into a 10 or 15-minute conversation, explaining why, this particular area of interest is probably fitting for the child. And the first point of contact is probably an assessment or something like that. That conversation can be put into a course that you can sell for 200 rands even, like as a once-off. And that's, a very simplistic view of looking at how you could do this. Obviously, you can do a lot better with it. I want to show you a few examples, though. So, and again, not to... so Tubs and Tots is this is an OT, and what we did was we came up with a way where, especially during lockdown, parents, rather than going for OT sessions, they could almost buy activities that they would go through with their child. So, on multiple levels, this is amazing. So one is quality time with the child. Secondly, it's like, it's like good activities that you're spending, not just, and there's a benefit to it. And, where we're going with this is it's almost like like an activity every month, and you get, access to all of the previous activities, and you get a feedback session with the OT, and it's like $4.90 per month. And simple maths, you get 200 clients doing that. That's a 100K revenue stream up. And that's so that's one example.
Yeah, and I mean, this is actually something that I have been encouraging from the early days. If you watch my YouTube channel from early on, really, I had Play More OT on, who has a subscription service, which like a play, where she does like a play, has play resources and videos and things like that. And then Calabash, of course, I actually encourage therapists, if you are an expert in something, then create a course. They, Impact Learning does the same. They do the CPD points, people buy it, and it's a passive revenue stream. So yeah, I think it is something that people need to think about, because you do need to diversify your revenue streams. You can't just rely on that one, because COVID has taught us that if you didn't have like an alternate revenue stream and you were relying solely on you being in your practice and you couldn't be, then you were stuffed. And I think also when it comes to therapists saying, oh, but I don't have anything to teach, yet they do workshops all the time. I think this year has kind of forced a lot of people to think about online, because everybody just wants to do everything in person. And South Africans are like that. Like, oh, aren't you going to have an in-person workshop? It's like, why do you want to travel somewhere and take your whole day out and go and sit there and have like, like snack foods? And like, I know it's nice, and I also love the networking opportunity, but we need to kind of think a little bit more in terms of what more you can get out of these other avenues. You can meet so many more people and reach so many people. So like a simple thing like a workshop, converting it into an online format is an example of something you can offer as an online course. And what I also always say is that you could use it as what we call a lead generator, in the sense that somebody is not yet ready to be a patient and you can offer them value, but it's a paid lead generator, as opposed to paying to put ads out and you are paying to have the leads come in. Now they are paying you to become your leads. It's kind of like a win-win. So I think that's how people need to kind of think out the box a little bit.
Yeah, sure. That is such magical marketing advice. I mean, like, and if you could do that, I mean, that is, I mean, like what you just said, if you could get people to implement that, I mean, that is gold, because I mean, every marketer tells you, you need to put in X to make X. And if you could get both sides of that, as in clients are paying you to become clients, I mean, that's what you want. I do want to say, because you mentioned, Calabash, and you mentioned impact therapy. Not impact therapy, sorry.
Impact learning, yeah.
Impact learning, yes. Cara and Sarah. So I mean, like, this would be coming back to your Facebook, your Facebook analogy. What we're doing with ISORISE, it's almost like you owning the platform. For $500 a month, this is your space in the world. So you're not reliant on the other provider promoting your courses, on them growing their membership or anything like that. This is you doing it. If in this case, this client, got 200 clients, at that subscription, that I mean, she controls that 100K revenue stream, 100% by her. And she's not dependent on anyone. So that's the biggest value, I would say, in terms of positioning, how it's positioned. This is Naomi Holt, and she got lots of media coverage over COVID as an educational psychologist and kids, struggling with not being at school and remote learning. But she's got a whole bunch of courses and videos. And then the last one is Elsa Alberts, also a psychologist, but considering a lot more on the higher end, of like building, like building a better life, so similar to our mission at the moment, Tasneem, in terms of how do we, help clients, to do that. But you can see, her courses are a lot more expensive. Yeah. So just to show you that it is reality, it's not, we're not just making it up, in terms of where it is right now.
And I think also, I think the barrier to entry for having online courses is in the know-how. Because for me, it's if I decide, okay, I'm going to start an online course, like chip chop, I can put one online because I know how it works. But if for somebody who doesn't even want to have a website because it's too overwhelming, like that is part of the barrier to entry, right? Whereas, so in other words, what I'm hearing you saying is that through this product, you're making it easy, where they just have to focus on the content and getting the knowledge out, but the platform and that is there for them to use. It's easy. They don't have to figure out which software to use, how to, put everything up, like, that is kind of done for them. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And that's our whole mantra, as I tied up just now, you'll see is that, yes, you can figure this out. And Tasneem, you're doing a phenomenal job at putting out the options, around how you do this. But you can do that. And I think there's very few people with that mindset of doing that. If I look at Ilse as an example, she used one of the, I think she used Simplero. Simplero charges $2.5 grand a month, on their medium package. And even then she couldn't really figure out, how to get that engine to work. And normally, if you have an IT savvy person, if you can, you have a content person, yes, those things are amazing. But in our use case and for our clients and, where we are, I think this is good enough in terms of having something that's brilliant out there and you make revenue from it. And that's the goal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I did the demo. And then the last one is getting the basic baking lessons. And, even before I go into what we offer, I do want to say, I love your work. I love what, you bring into the market and to healthcare practitioners. And, so I was very impressed when you contacted me and said, would you, want to be on the show and talk about what you offer? Because I think it starts with that stuff, so irrespective of whether you follow our content, but just get it right for private practice and get the best advice you can in terms of building up, saving time, reducing your expenses and making the revenue that you want. If you can do that, irrespective of who you use, I think that's the space you want to be in. But what we've done is, we put a course out. It's not really expensive, but we took all of our experience and it's almost like a crash course at a very high level in terms of what you need for a private practice. With each one of those areas, you can do a deep dive. And, what we're hoping, you spoke about lead generation. What we're hoping is that when you do that course, that you then start speaking to us about maybe some of the other services and saying, okay, I want to do this, how would I do that? And that's what we use it for. But there's enough value in it that I think anyone that's starting out, or even if you're in the early stages of that you could definitely find value in that 10 module course. The other one was, and I said, it's not just the what, but it's how and the why. I think the course could do a lot better in terms of, doing the how. And, over time, I think maybe we'll release almost like a study guide kind of concept around that. And then we came up with this, but to be honest, it's more an idea than anything else. Over time, we've come up with, we've helped practitioners, especially with the Forge product, to be able to build practices over 70K per month. And And you'll know this with business, and that's why they say, if you're successful in business, normally the second business is easier than the first. It's because you're seeing so much of those trends. Even with the practice management software, I told you the stats around unpaids. Just getting some of that stuff done properly is a huge amount of money that you could almost do. And we said, if you almost can think of a 2-month plan, and if you wanted us to help you with that to build a 70K revenue stream, this could be an option for you. We're so confident about it that, we'll probably, we'll definitely give a refund if we don't get that 70K and if you follow the system.
But I think that is the key also, is the following. So I find that, I'm guilty of this in some cases as well. I love doing courses. So I'm always signing up for everything. I'm like the best target audience you can have for, like, if you run ads, because I'll be like, shiny objects, I'm buying it. So but the problem is, it's like, if you're not fully invested in the process and you don't actually follow, so you can't now go and sign up for a course like a LinkedIn mastery course, and then you do the whole course, but then you don't implement anything you learn, and then you say, well, now I want my money back. You have to actually, like, do the work. And if the method doesn't work and bring you any results, then you can say, well, now I want my money back. So I think that is really key, whether you're going for doing like a course like yours, or the academy like mine, or signing up for a mentorship, or going to see a coach. The key really is that at the end of the day, it's still up to you. So I actually did a live on this recently where I spoke about the difference between having a mentor or a coach and when you need what. And in both instances, I gave the analogy of, if you were Serena Williams and wanted to become pro, and now you're in your young days, at the end of the day, no matter how good your coach is or how good your trainer is, if you are still the one that needs to win the games in order to become pro. So you still need to be the one that develops the skills, put in the work, has the talent, does all of the things. The coach or the mentor can only be there to provide you with the tools, the support, the advice, all of those things. You still need to do the work.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I like that. And then this is something we put in, and actually we spoke to yourself, Tasneem, as well, to be on it. And what we said is it's called the Molding Private Practice Show, and it's done with one of my colleagues, Shaz. And the reason I wanted to on the show as well, and you see it, with your own shows. There's something about feeding off each other in terms of content. So it's available on YouTube, SoundCloud, Facebook page, that we have for Kitrin. I'm hoping to release on Apple Podcasts soon, and then everywhere where we can post it. So that's the idea. And it's something that we can kind of give back on. Hopefully some of our experience, some of the things we're finding in the private practice space. And it's just dedicated around that aspect. So just putting it together, if you're looking for a service, a managed service, if you're looking for the tools, if you're looking for a course, if you're looking for content, the only question you have to ask is, does it make sense for you and your private practice? And I think you can't have a pitch without, explaining why you'd probably choose working with us. And so I said the first one is we have a fully inclusive product offering. Hopefully, you see this from this presentation, is that it's not just one thing, because I don't think that's it. If there's one magic bullet, find that. But and the other thing is, I think it evolves as your practice evolves. So starting out, you probably just need the software. But when you have 2 toddlers running around and to do household duties, the last thing you want to do, even if it's easy, is do invoicing and following up. And at that stage, you probably want to move into another space. And what we kind of giving clients is it's like that umbrella. It's giving you a comfort space to say you choose, whether you want to be wet or not. I think we actively, personally using and refining the products based on our consulting-based model. That is, we take our own medicine. And the reason I say this is, it's like even recently, MedScheme released a change where they said they want the start time and the end time for a therapy session. And And as soon as the notice comes out, because we pick it up in our consulting model, with ISOForge clients, we immediately make the changes on the software to be able to enable that. And that's kind of unique, I think, because there's not many companies that do that. Most, just take a software view on it, or most take a, bureau view on it. And I think we take both to feed the model. I was in a mastermind group, and I was trying to explain to the guys overseas, how would I pitch this, and we came up with this concept of so similar to the Virgin brand, and I said, we offer a premium experience at regular prices. So, because like price is an indication of how good the quality is normally. Apple products is a good example of that, but I want to say that our products are value-based at a fair and competitive price. We don't charge more just because the products are better or our support is exceptional. The products are also next generational. I used the example of the calendar in SMEMetrics 6 years ago. Now it seems to be a common thing, and I think Tesneem, you'll see that as you bring on more vendors as well. But I promise you, if you could do screenshots 6 years ago, I don't think there were many people doing that. At the same time, the conversations we're having around ISOForge and ISORISE, around content and around managed service, I think is fairly, when we explain it to people, they always like give you that look, and it's like, I don't think that's possible, and I'm saying it is possible. It's right here now. And in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll be having a different conversation. It'll become more mainstream. But that's how we want to play, in terms of the space. We focus exclusively on healthcare practitioners in private practice. So we don't have, this, and then we do, we work with plumbers or electricians, so. And that's important because, we clearly understand what's needed, both by the current clients as well as prospective clients. So that's important for me. We also work full-time as a team on this. It's not a side project or something that we hope, to make successful. It's with what we're currently committed on. So if you phone me, you have 100% assurance that I'm fully committed on that phone call. And then all our products come with free online-based training, 1-month contracts. So again, that's very different to, I think, how the bureaus do it. So there's no annual contract. It's unlimited support via telephone, email, or conference call. And that's pretty much it, except for, like the glowing part at the end, just to say that we do have clients. So there's a few testimonials. This one is from a psychologist, and she said, after almost 30 years of managing the business side of my practice through multiple service providers, I found all I need from ISOForge. I'm impressed with the professional way the team from ISOForge is looking after me in reaction time and efficiency, and I highly recommend it. Another one from a clinical psychologist, she mentions both there. SMEMetrics and ISOForge are exceptional products, which I would highly recommend. One from a registered counselor. This one I like because it ties into that value part. Firstly, they came highly recommended, but they also offered at an affordable and sustainable rate. It seemed almost too good to be true.
Can I just say on the topic of highly recommended, I told you this before that, I didn't know SMEMetrics was part of Kitrin, but that is that question comes up a lot, like which practice management software I use, and people generally who recommend SMEMetrics generally rave about it, almost like it's their own product, like they try to convince you should try them because I really love it. So yeah, I can say that I've seen with my own eyes in groups that people have recommended to others. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually amazing feedback, because I almost think when clients respond, it's it makes you feel really good when that's happening, and hearing you say that as well means that we are on the right path.
So all the links I will also put in the video description below, and also link to your YouTube channel so that people can also find your Molding Private Practice show. And all the links to the courses, your website, your products, all of those kind of things.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and that's our story. I mean, I hope I covered everything, and I brought it across in a way of being something that's not just a single product. Because I think it's not.
Thank you so much. I think I do have one question. How quick is it to kind of onboard? Like, say if somebody decides, okay, they're going to contact you now, they want to get on board with you. How long does it take to onboard somebody into your team and know how to work things?
From a team perspective or from a client perspective?
From the client perspective. So say I'm coming to you now and like, okay, I want to sign up to your service. How long does the onboarding process? Because I obviously have to now get to know like how you work and what is my role and what is your role and all of that stuff.
So on the managed service, it takes at least 2 hours on the initial discussion. And normally you would have a discussion with the full team. We'll show you how the software works, what the processes are. But it's quite daunting. So, and what we find is it takes about 2 months actually for the processes to mature. But for us to become proficient, in terms of invoicing, not more than a week. So we have each one of the processes defined. So we'll ask you, do you bill daily? Do you bill weekly? Do you bill monthly? Do you do medical aid plans? Do you submit via EDI or email? How often do you want to submit to medical aid? How often do we get your bank statements so we can allocate the payments? How often would you want us to run the unpaids? Obviously, we have a blueprint and we guide that conversation. But to go through those probably 8 or 9 business processes does take a while. But I would say in the initial discussion, probably budget on an hour, 2 hour discussion. From there, probably a week for the team to be properly productive. And then probably 2 months to be more mature in terms of, actually, this is a team for you. And that's what we find.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming on to talk to us about your services and your product.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I mean, I think your space, what you're doing is, I don't know many people doing that, and I think what you're doing for healthcare practitioners is amazing to be able to bring that.
No, it's my pleasure. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to end the podcast now. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers.